All right, everybody. Day 20 of the month of letting go, or a month of letting go, because every month we should be letting go. But this week, we've been discussing why it's so hard. And we've had a lot of different discussions about it. We talked about how it hurts. It hurts. And then yesterday we talked about the subconscious, and that's like we don't even know that shit's there, and we gotta find it. And today I want to talk about something that I mentioned in passing kind of all the time, a lot. I don't know about all the time, but a lot. And that is the fact that you have to have patience for yourself or with yourself. Letting go takes time and it takes patience. Not everybody's journey is, in fact, every single person's journey, their path, is different, very different, in different degrees to other people's, right? And as we go through it, we have to be understanding, and if someone we know is going through it, we have to be understanding that their brain's not wired the same way. They don't have the same experiences we have. So be gentle with those people, even if you feel like, oh, that's ridiculous. Keep it to yourself. Just keep it to yourself. Just be supportive. We let go in layers. So we can let go of something and be like, oh, we let go of that. And then, a year later, we're like, oh, no, I'm still holding on to that. It's a level of attachment. We attach ourselves in levels. It's weird. But when you let one go, another might surface. And, you could, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff about my childhood that I've let go of the cause. But I'm still working on the effects, and that it takes time. They're still, I think I get over it, and then I'm like, I'm still kind of, there's a resentment there. There's a grief, towards an ex-boyfriend even, just like, oh, I'm over it. And then just like one day you're like, it pops into your head and you're like, asshole. But each layer is its own thing. And it requires its own time to process and release. And yes, it sounds like it takes time because it takes time. It's not a linear thing. Progress in this area is not linear at all. And it's okay to revisit and reprocess certain emotions and attachments. You might have to go back and do it again. I find myself that if I have an idea, a breakthrough, and then I forget about it, I'll come up with it again 3 weeks later. It's like, son of a bitch, I came up with this already. And it's okay to do that. It's not only is it okay, but it's expected. And you should realize that that's what's going to happen, so you can have the patience for it. Healing is nonlinear. Letting go has its ups and downs. There'll be days, and you've seen me, if you've watched anything, there are good days and there are bad days. And there are days where you're like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And there are other days where you're like, it's hitting me. And it can slap you in the face. The key there is to remember that that's part of the process and not give up. This isn't working. I've certainly said that in the past, but it is working. If you feel these shitty emotions, it's actually working because that's you releasing them. So long as you don't push them back down, it's progress. And even if you do push them back down, you're pretty used to doing that, and it hurts a lot. So have grace with yourself for that. You never know what's going to surface. And if something comes and hits you in the face, you're not back to square one at all. It's just another layer to release. So it's a good thing. You're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm ready. This has come up, and I guess I'm ready to release this. And that's the opportunity there. So what's important for you, I would say, is to recognize that setbacks are part of the process and not a sign of failure. And that's hard for people who consider themselves failures. But patience and persistence are key. And I know for a fact, it still happens. I want it done now. Why isn't it done now? I'm working really hard at it. Why isn't it done? And it's never going to get done. But to which I mean, why haven't I gotten to a place where I've fixed a bunch of the shit that I screwed up? Like, why ain't I? But it takes time. And if you want it to happen, it will, and it can, and you can do it. But you have to keep at it. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be, I'm sure there are cases that don't take years, but it's probably going to be years. But you'll feel so good, and you'll be able to help people along the way. It's I guess what I'm trying to say is it is worth it. During these times, you really need to remember to be kind to yourself during this process, because it hurts and it sucks, and you remember things that you did that you don't like that you did. You remember things that you're holding on to from, kindergarten when a friend hurt your feelings or whatever. But by acknowledging it's a difficult journey, you can have a bit more compassion for yourself, and try and remember to treat yourself the way you would treat a friend, with compassion, because you wouldn't do what you do to yourself to a friend. You really wouldn't. That person wouldn't be your friend very long. Imagine what would I did this a lot at one point. Sit back and I imagine, like, what if a friend of mine was going through this? What would I say to her? And I would come up with things that were much nicer. And it felt good to say those things to myself. So it's totally normal to get frustrated, especially if you feel stuck. Just remember it's a part of the process, and you are working on it, which means you're getting further. Even if it feels like a setback, you're still working on it, which means you're getting closer and closer to feeling better. And encourage yourself. I'm a big self-encourager. I talk to myself all the time. I'm like, you're doing such a good job. I go to the gym and I'm like, you are a monster. You're a beast. Go, my God, you're amazing. And it's ridiculous, but it helps. I mean, number one, it keeps my spirits up. I'm like, I'm a monster. I'm a beast. I'm a monster. I'm a beast. It's just like, it's silly on the surface, but if you say it to yourself enough, you're like, yeah, I am fucking amazing. Or at least you start in that direction. But just support yourself the way you would a friend, the way you would want. Think about what you want people to say to you. What would help you, and then say it to yourself. And every time you are compassionate with yourself, you should feel good about yourself, because that shit's hard if you're not used to it. It's really hard. It takes a while. It does. And even if it doesn't feel like you are actually having compassion for yourself, just keep acting as though you are. It will sink in at some point. And a lot of times you want to, we've spoken about being aware of your thoughts, the critic that's inside of there. Relax and release that critic out of there. They'll be there. They're not going away very soon or very quickly, but relax. That critic is not you. Those thoughts are not actually your thoughts. They were put in there by someone else. Try and remember that when you're having them. These aren't mine. Someone put these in here. Even if they're your own views of yourself, right? The idea that you should be X and not Y, that's someone else's judgment of what you should be. And while it's easy to be like, well, yeah, society says this and therefore that, you're not society. You're you. And it's your responsibility. Your happiness is your responsibility. And I'm not saying that in a sense of like, if you're not happy, you're being irresponsible or you're to blame. I'm saying, like, you gotta work for it. It's only you can do it. And if society's mores get in the way, then fuck them. That doesn't make me happy. It does not serve me. It's not like it's immoral, the thing that I'm doing. I'm not hurting anyone. It's just not what society sees as the way it should be. And screw that. So just remember, reducing the self-criticism, relaxing, having compassion for yourself. These things are very, very key in healing. And remember also that you got to kind of integrate these things in. I forget my realizations often, but sometimes you'll have a thought, a realization, a breakthrough, and it's going to take a little bit of time for you to integrate that into your life. It's not like you realize something and all of a sudden your patterns change. It would be nice. It would be so nice, but realizing it is only half the battle. There's still the other half of the battle left. I don't like to use words like battle because it's combative, and that's not what we should be putting in here. So let's say instead of that, say it's half the process. It's the beginning of it. You still have to do the work to get through it. And even if you're saying, you're clinging on, you've got this realization and you act against it, another place to have compassion for yourself, because you're going to be like, I know not to do that. Yeah, you do. But knowing and feeling and being able to put it into action take practice. So just watch yourself, be compassionate with yourself, recognize when you see yourself not doing it, that's a good thing, because that's the only way you're going to get yourself not to do it. So allow yourself space for integration. After letting go, there's a bit of recalibration. How is life different now that I've realized this? How do I incorporate this into my life? Where does this show up? And how can I counter it? It takes time, but it's worth it. So that's it for today. I am just going to say to you guys, you're awesome. And even if you're having trouble having compassion for yourself, it's okay. It happens to everybody to some degree. Some of us a bit more than others, but everybody feels it. Everybody does. And learning to be compassionate with yourself, I think it's one of the most important things in life. Because if you're not compassionate with yourself, you are going to just feel shitty your whole life. Your whole life. So just remember that even if you're having a tough time having compassion for yourself, you can always choose to have a grateful day.